People always say that you have to have money to make money, and that there's an extraordinary level of sacrifice on the road to success. So how is it that investors like us, who didn't start out with much money and who don't rely on banks and credit, how is it that we can increase our income and build our wealth in a way that doesn't require us replacing one full-time job with another while still enjoying the things in life that matter most to us? That has always been the big question, and this podcast reveals the answers. I am Howie Lyke, and this is the Investor Warrior.
That's just me. Hello.
Hey guys, happy Friday. Welcome back to the Investor Warrior. Today is Howie and I in separate places today. So Howie's at the office, I'm at home. And so we're doing this live stream in two different places. But
Our brand new,
remember
our new office, I should say.
Yeah, so we just opened up a new office in Sanford, Florida. Still under construction, but it's getting there.
You can see the tape.
So hopefully soon we're going to have a grand opening, and we would love for you all to come out and say hi and network and connect. So stay posted on that, because we'll be sending out an invite here shortly, just as soon as renovation is complete. Anyway, so today we wanted to talk about the 6 human needs. These are actually Tony Robbins' 6 human needs. And I'm going to let you, Howie, explain the 6 human needs. And then we're going to go into how this applies to our business of real estate investing and talking to all the different parties involved: lenders, buyers, sellers, tenants. We deal with a lot of different people in our business. And if you understand the 6 human needs, you're going to have more influence, and you're going to create more change in other people's lives.
All right.
So, you have the floor, my dear.
I do. Okay. Well, the 6 human needs are in order: certainty.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is
Are you going to remember these, or should you have?
Oh, yeah, I can remember them.
Okay.
I talk about them all the time. Right. Okay. Certainty. Okay. We have the need for certainty. All right. And I'll come back to all of these. Okay. The second need that we have actually conflicts with the first need. And that is the need for uncertainty, or another way of putting it is variety. Okay. The third human need that we have is significance. We have the need for personal significance. And the fourth need is the need for love. And if we can't have love, we will settle for connection. Okay. So love and connection are the fourth human need. And that also tends to be in complete sort of 180-degree conflict with the need for personal significance, right? So the first one's about me, and the second one's about you and me, right? That kind of thing. The fifth human need is the fifth and sixth human needs are the need of the spirit. And that is the number 5 is the need for growth. And number 6 is the need to contribute, for contribution. And so those are the 6 human needs. Now, we all have each one of these needs. Every one of us has all 6 needs. Okay. Right. That is apparent. So if someone says, "Oh, I'm not about significance. I don't think about myself. I don't promote myself, and it's not about me. It's about everything else," and all that. That's just a bunch of bull. Everybody has all 6 human needs. Now, what we don't share in common is that as individuals, we have a hierarchy of those needs. We have a ranking. So there's a first one, a second one, a third, a fourth, a fifth, and a sixth. And really understanding where you rank in these needs has a huge amount to do with why we behave the way that we do, why we're driven the way that we're driven, why we react to things the way that we do, and so forth and so on. There's also some better needs than others. There are a couple sort of could be, if they're out of control, sort of little evil ones. Okay. And so the 2 sort of little evil ones are significance and certainty. Now I'm going to couch that by saying, remember, we all have all 6 needs, and that's part of being human, and that's okay. It's when these needs are 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. Okay. If certainty is number 1 and significance is number 2, you got problems in your life. Plain and simple.
Well, okay. And that is most people's top 2, isn't it? Significance and certainty.
Not necessarily. I wouldn't go so far as to say most.
Mm.
Um, and also they tend to vary in life. So I've been aware of these needs for a long time, and I've been looking at myself for a long time. And I think I told you the other day, I've realized that for many, many years, I've looked at these needs. And when we do these exercises, like what are your values and what are your beliefs, and what,
Mhm.
where are you at in the 6 human needs, and these things that all shape the way that, that shape our experiences.
Right.
Uh, I think what we tend to do is we tend to lie to ourselves. I think we tend to write down on that piece of paper in that exercise what we think we want to be, as opposed
Right.
to what we really are. And so I've been doing this exercise for a number of years now, and I never, ever, ever put significance up at the top. But I told you the other day, I realized that in my life, significance has crept to the top. And I can see when significance has crept to the top, that's when I've had some of the deeper troubles in my life, or the deeper challenges in my life, and things like that. So so these things change, they ebb and they flow, and we have to be, if we're going to be conscious and aware about them, we definitely want to be honest with ourselves about what they are. But I wouldn't say that significance and, back to your point, certainty is everybody's top two. Certainty actually is really, really, really the one that people struggle with the most. Okay, there's a young man that I have the privilege of mentoring. He came to me through a very, very, very dear friend, work colleague for 25 years, and it's his nephew. And he's in his mid to late 20s. He's educated. He's got a lot of amazing qualities. And we were having a conversation the other day about a crossroads that he's at. He's
Mhm.
at a career crossroads, and he is looking at two completely diabolically different job opportunities.
Mhm.
And it's that classic sort of like, this one has all of this, and this one has all of that. And the one that this has, this one didn't have, and all of that kind of stuff. Interestingly enough, the compensation was similar. They both were very, 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 for a job, really, really great compensation. You're talking, $200,000 plus jobs, or at least potential jobs. And so, from a money standpoint, as far as jobs go, it wasn't the money. It was the challenge and the location, and and growth opportunities, and where am I going to land, and everything. And he made himself, the point of the story is he made himself sick over this decision. And he had turned to me a couple times, and after a while I realized, and it was the night he needed to make the decision. He needed to make the decision by tomorrow morning, and I think he called me last in sort of desperation. And I realized that the problem that he was having was that he was looking for certainty in his answer. He wanted to be certain that if he took this position, it wasn't going to be the wrong choice, or if he
Right.
took this position, it was going to work out perfectly. And finally, the two pieces of guidance I gave him was, first, that he really needed to follow his heart, right? Like you need to, like, stop looking at the money, stop looking at everything. Which one of these really challenges you? Which one is the one that you feel is going to provide the most growth opportunity? And I know in my case, when I've had a crossroad like that, the harder choice has always been the right choice. The easier one, the more cake decision, the one that's going to be sort of the easier route and everything, that usually ends up being the wrong decision. The harder one is usually the right decision. And so that's all I shared with him as far as that. But the other thing I kind of had to get my Zeus energy on him and kind of slap him around a little bit was, I realized that you're just trying to get certain. You want someone to give you want me or your uncle or some of these people that you're coming to, you want us to give you an answer that makes you feel certain, and it's not going to happen. Like, it's
Right.
absolutely not going to happen. And so I think that, that snapped him on that like literally snapped him, and he was able to
Mhm.
make a decision, and he's excited about it, and that's all great. But I only use that example because it was super recent. It was just the other night, and it is a really, really great example of how so many people are driven by certainty, right? They have to be certain. And we talked in our last episode, we talked about the monkey mind, and the little devil on our
Mhm.
shoulder, and all that kind of stuff. So much of that comes up from our need of certainty, right? The especially that projecting into the future, that constant projecting into the future, what's going to happen, and the anxiety that comes around that really stems from our deep, deep, deep need for certainty.
Yeah.
But we can't
Yeah,
have
and
certainty.
you and I have talked about this a lot since going to the Tony Robbins
Mhm.
events, and that when you and I first met, our primary need was probably uncertainty, because we were just in this phase of our life where I was just getting out of this relationship when I met you, and I wanted to travel the world, and I didn't have any really responsibilities except for my, new career that I had to go to, clock in and out of.
The 9 to 5.
The 9 to 5. And my biggest need back then was actually uncertainty. I didn't want, I just wanted variety in my life. I wanted surprise and adventure. I wanted adventure. And slowly, as you and I built up our business and we grew our family, that need shifted from uncertainty to certainty, because it wasn't about me anymore.
Can I add to what you just said?
It
didn't gradually shift. The minute we had a baby, it
probably
slammed into certainty, and our life changed, and it became challenging because it was no longer, happy-go-lucky.
Well, when your primary need is certainty, you do go crazy, because there is nothing certain in this life. And you and I were just talking to Cameron, our 9-year-old, about this, because we had told them that we wanted to buy a house out in Montana to go back and forth between. We want to go between the mountains and, cold weather and hot weather, the mountains to the ocean. So that is the lifestyle that we want to live. And so we've been looking for a home out in Montana to do that. And Cameron, we said by the summer we were going to be doing that. And Cameron was like, okay, this summer we're going out to Montana. We're going to be traveling out there, right? And we said, we were like, well, we're not sure yet, because we still are trying to put a plan in place. And he started getting kind of anxious about it. Like, well, but you said this was what we were going to do. And we had to have this conversation with him about how there's uncertainty in life. Like, we can plan and we can envision and we can talk about what it is that we want, but we're not certain that it's going to happen exactly how we envision it. And we're not certain it's going to happen at the exact time and place that it's going to happen. And when your primary need is certainty, that's when the monkey mind turns on, because it does make you crazy. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about morality and death. And it was funny because the podcast guest said, the only thing that's certain in this life is that none of us are making it out alive. Like, the only thing that's certain in this life is death. It's a very efficient process.
The old joke, death and taxes.
There's that it is going to happen. You can be certain about that. And that is the only certainty in life.
Yep. Well, and I think you wanted to tail this to being an entrepreneur, right? And in real estate investment world and that kind of a thing. And so, I think that, one of the reasons why entrepreneurship isn't for everybody is because the people it isn't for are the people that are 100% certainty driven. That is their number one human need. Now, remember, we all have all 6, but that is their number one human need, and they're being driven by that. And if there's anything in this life when it comes to career and, money, the lack of money, keeping a roof over your head, that kind of a thing, that if there's anything that is the most uncertain place to be, it's being an entrepreneur. Right. And so I have been an entrepreneur since 1994. I like my famous line, which is, I haven't taken a W-2 paycheck from a company that I didn't own since 1994, is a true statement. And so you can see that for the most of my life, certainty was just not at the top. It just wasn't at the top. I took, I don't know if it was you or I was talking to somebody the other day, but I reminded myself that around that time, like 1994, 1995, I left a very good paying job at a big company with the 401ks and the health benefits and everything. I took a 90-day contract. I took a 90-day contract and didn't know what was on the other side. And so you talk about uncertain. And by the way, my oldest son was little at that time, and I was a dad, and I had those kinds of responsibilities. And so I would have never done that if certainty was my top need, right? And so, the long story is that world took me all around the world. I've had the opportunity and the privilege of doing and seeing amazing places and amazing things, and in the mostly driven from the business world, which would have never happened if I didn't take that 90-day contract. Now, here's what I'm not saying. I'm not saying you should quit your job and take a 90-day contract. It is just an example of the opportunities and the riches that can be had if you can put if you can put that need of certainty aside
Mhm.
and really look at where you want to go and where you really want to be.
So I wanted to talk about how we can keep this in mind when we're speaking with sellers and homeowners,
Mm.
buyers, tenants, lenders, because I do feel that when we live in uncertain times like we're living in and the craziness of the world right now, people tend to flock to certainty. In uncertain times, they crave certainty
Even more,
because
yeah, that's a good point.
it gets a little bit chaotic, right?
Right, right.
And so if I'm, let's say, older and my kids are out of the house and I've got some money lying around, do I really want to put it in the stock market right now? Is that going to make me certain that I'm going to continue to grow my money?
Mhm.
Uh, Probably right now, no, because we don't know what's going to happen. If I have a house
I know.
that
I stopped trading a few months ago. Remember, I like this has gotten
Mhm.
so nutty. I've just held.
Yeah. But I think that when we're speaking to people in this uncertain world, if we can create certainty in the lives of people that we're working with, we have so much more influence, and we can create so much change in both our lives and their lives in a positive way.
Okay.
Uh, and what I'm saying is when you're speaking with a seller, I mean, of all the transactions that we've done over the years, I can't think of one homeowner who didn't want certainty out of the transaction,
Right, right, right,
because
right.
they
It's a
either
good
had
point.
a house that they couldn't sell and that was an
Hmm.
uncertain situation, or they had a house that they could sell, but they weren't sure what they were going to do with the cash that they were going to receive at the end of the day. Or the lenders that we've spoken with, they want certainty that their investment is going to be protected and that their money is going to continue to grow. Buyers want certainty when they're putting in offers. They want to be certain that it's a good offer and that it's going to get accepted, right?
They want to be certain. They want to be certain that you are who you say you are, and you're going to do what you say you're going to do.
Correct. And so everyone we speak to in our world of real estate investing is in some way desiring certainty out of the situation. Same thing when if you're selling something, if you're selling knives to someone, right? If you're selling a set of knives to a potential purchaser, they want to be certain that these knives are going to give them something in their life, right? It's
Hmm.
about creating that certainty. So, how can we keep this at the top of our mind when we're speaking to sellers? Uh, Howie and
You
I,
need to, yeah.
what's
Are
that?
you asking me? Are you asking me, or
Yeah,
was
what?
that rhetorical?
Sure, go ahead. You can answer the question.
Well, the answer to the how is by really, really listening to what's going on. There's a concept called level 5 listening, right? There's level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. And level 5 listening is really listening into what people are saying. It's seeing it's understanding the writing on the wall, right? There's what people
Mhm.
say, and then there's what they're really saying. And people that are really, really good at level 5 listening can really understand where a person is coming from. And if we shift the focus off ourselves and what we want, and that's key here, because we go into these conversations, and if we're trying to buy a house, we really want, and we want to get these terms, and we want to get this price and all that kind of stuff. We're so focused on what we want, that it's so easy not to flip that and be wholly invested in the person that you're doing business with, caring, right? Bring in a level of caring across. Like, I care for this person, and I care that at the end of this transaction, that this is good for them as much as it's good for me. Okay. And
Mhm.
if we can bring that attitude towards these conversations and really, really practice level 5 listening to what are they really trying to say? What's really going on? What is it that they really need certainty about, to get to put it in the context of certainty, because that's the difference maker right there.
Well, and isn't that shifting your need from certainty that it's going to be a good deal for you to love and connecting with the person to understand what their needs are?
I wouldn't. I would just adjust that a little bit. I wouldn't say shifting it from being a good deal, because at the end of the day, it needs to be good for everybody, right?
Right.
So you're not going to sacrifice. Don't buy other people's problems. All the other things that we talk about, right? Just because I love you so much and you're a great person, and so I'm going to take your problems off your hand and make them my problems. So that it still needs to be a good deal for most of us. But I think the issue, what you're looking for necessarily is, I'm going to care about and I'm going to serve their need for certainty, but I am going to detach from the outcome. That's the key, right? One of the reasons why we feel we get so that the fear of failure and fear of rejection is so heightened in those situations is because we're trying to get what we want out of it, and if we don't get what we want out of it, then we feel rejected, and then we feel like we failed,
which hits our significance need button.
Well, it also
feeling rejected is really going against your significant need.
Well, a lot of them.
You don't feel significant when you're rejected, do you?
It also goes against love and connection. And love and connection is my number one need. Always has been. Everything else has shifted up and down to number two, but that one's always been the top for me, right? We had this conversation the other day. And so I don't like feeling rejected because it blows my need for connection. Right? And so, but if I'm detached from the outcome, then I'm much less fearful of the outcome. I'm much less fearful of the rejection. I'm much less fearful of the failure, right? I'm much more focused on serving, right? With the ultimate objection, or not objection, the ultimate objective, the ultimate goal of coming up with something that works for both of us. And I can only do that effectively if I've really listened to what the other person needs, right? And now I'm serving their certainty, their need for certainty.
Oh, so describe the level 5 listening. So you've been...
Yeah, I've been doing some training around this.
So you have been practicing level 5 listening, and I have noticed a difference just in our interactions with each other with your listening. Not that you were a bad listener before, but I have noticed
we can always get better at everything.
I have, in fact, you have told me I need to develop level 5 listening in some conversations you and I have had.
All I've said is you could benefit from some of this training too. you would enjoy it.
Yeah.
Get a lot out of it.
So what is level 5 listening?
Man, I don't know if I'm far enough into this. I don't know if I'm far enough into this learning to really.
Yeah, I think you can explain it though in a way.
Yeah. I'm going to give you a contrast. Level 1 listening is where you're just not listening at all, right? You're barely paying attention to what's going on.
It's like our 18-year-old when we're talking to him and he's like staring at the phone.
Yeah, that kind of thing. That's like level 1 listening, right? And then level 3 listening is inferential listening. So in level 3 listening, I hear what you're saying. I can even repeat it back to you.
Right.
But I'm not really understanding what's going on. I'm not really understanding what's taking place. I'm not really catching the key phrases and words that you're using that would give me access to a deeper conversation with you. Okay.
So you're basically listening to listening. You're not listening to understand or process.
Yeah. I mean, you're listening, but you're still listening, and maybe your intention is to listen to understand, but building the level 5 listening skill, and there's a level 4 is kind of like this distinction between level 3 and level 5, but we'll sort of skip that for now. The level 5 listening is where you really are picking up on what's super important for them, what's really behind that word that they just used, and there are words out there that when people use, whatever the context of the conversation, you could be talking about their past, you could be talking about what's going on in their present situation, whether it's work or the home that you're trying to buy, or you should be talking about where they're going. Like, where are you going in this? Like, after this transaction, where are you going? What is it that you need to get to? What's your goal, right? And those kinds of things. And so in any one of those past, present, future contexts, they're going to tell you what's important to them. And people will not talk about things they don't want to talk about. They won't mention. In other words, if they use, I'll use a word, prison. If they say, I went to prison in 2016, and they glance over it and they keep going, that's a really, really what we call it, sort of a boom few words that they just threw in there, right? But they wouldn't bring it up if they're not willing to talk about it. And so you could repeat that back to them in level 3 listening and just say, oh yeah, and you went to prison in 2016, and then you did this, and then you did that, and then you blah blah blah. Or you can go, wow, prison, what's that all about? And you get deeper into it, and you start to really understand what's going on in the background, what's really driving them, where is there, because I can tell you, if that little soundbite came up in the conversation in the context of buying their home, it has something to do with it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so
right. There was a reason they
access.
mentioned it.
There's access into getting deeper level. And so really, really repeating them too, here's what I hear you saying. And if they can say something that is 4 or 5 words, but your listening is so deep that when you repeat it to them, you're getting behind the words. You're actually saying, I'm hearing the intent. I'm hearing the emotion. I'm hearing the thing. And you tell them, this is the emotion that I'm hearing behind those 5 words, those 5 just surface level words that you gave me. This is what I'm hearing, and how does that set with you? What does that mean to you? Or, would you share more with me about that? Now
Mm-hmm.
you're into a much, much deeper, more meaningful correspondence with that person, right? The rapport building is through the roof at that point, because you're not just talking about surface level stuff and just glancing off of it and going to the next thing and blah blah blah. And so that's the best way I can explain level 5 listening.
This really requires you to turn off the chatter in your head, because I think a lot of us, when we're speaking to homeowners, we're listening to them on that level 3 level, because we are thinking about what we are going to say next.
Absolutely.
And so we're having this conversation in our head, like, oh, what do I ask them next? Where do I get to next?
Yep.
How do I drive this conversation here?
Right,
and all that chatter is going on. And when that chatter is going on, you can't engage in level 5 listening.
You can't. And so this is where detaching from the outcome is so important, because if you can just detach from the outcome and say, I'm here to serve, like just put yourself in that frame. I'm just here to serve. And hopefully there's a deal to be had here, but maybe there's not.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm here to serve first. And you just stay present with what the conversation is. Like, this is a really interesting forum because we're live right now. I know that, like you and I speaking right now, I know that this cannot be edited. I know that there's people listening and there's people watching. And so I almost can't allow my brain to go. I am literally, I'm probably at like a level 4 listening with you right now, because I have to understand what you're saying. However, I can drop really fast and go, okay, what am I going to say next? What am I going to say next? Right. It's like, it's being completely present and really caring about what this person's saying. If you can really care about what this person's saying and really just be present with them and not allow your brain to jump forward or jump back, whatever the little devil, whatever that little bee is doing on your shoulder, right? Taking you forward and taking you backwards. If you can just stay present with them and care about what there is that they're saying and really listen in for what's important about what they're saying, just that alone will take you to new heights. Just amazing new heights in terms of your rapport building with them. And I guarantee you are going to do deals with people that you didn't do deals with before, just from that approach alone.
Well, so this also requires you to shut up and to allow the other person to speak. I think so many of us want to do all the talking. And a lot of times it can be because we're nervous.
Yeah, it's nervous.
And when we're nervous, we tend to talk more, or we ramble, or we're just talking about ourselves and what we can do for them, when sometimes we have no idea what we can do for them because we haven't asked the questions. And
that's right.
So asking questions, some people will say, well, how do we get the other person talking? How do we engage in level 5 listening? How do we create certainty in people's lives? It's by asking questions, and letting them talk. And when they talk, really digging deeper into what they're saying by more questions. So Greg brought this up on one of the calls the other day. He said he went to a meeting. It was a real estate meeting, and this one person came up to him and said, hey, I've been wanting to talk to you. I've heard so much about you. And so Greg introduced himself to him, and he said, literally for the next 40 minutes, the kid talked the entire time about what he was doing and where his business, what his business was doing. And it was like, he approached Greg to get some information from Greg, but then he ended up doing all the talking and didn't allow anyone else to engage. And it reminded me of someone who had called me a few months ago who was listening on the podcast and asked if they could call and get some more information, and just talk to me about what they were struggling with. And when I got on the call with them, I couldn't get one word in. It was like it was just this like, just this vomit of words and sentences and just rambling. And it was about what they were doing and the conversations that they were having and and there was not one question asked. And I finally stopped him and I said, "Is this how you talk to sellers?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Do you do all the talking? Because you've literally been doing all the talking on this call. And that's what I'm noticing. And you might be struggling because this is the way you're coming across a homeowner, is you're just doing all the talking." And to me, it sounded, and I didn't tell him this, but to me, it sounded very significant driven. He wanted to share with me all of the things that, all the deals that he was potentially doing and all the conversations that he was having. And I don't know, it was a little bit significance driven, the way he spoke.
Sure.
And then I couldn't get any. Do you know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Yeah, I do totally. I think it's to me, it's a combination of things. I mean, you could use the 6 human needs and you can kind of like label people. I think it's also something that we want to be careful about, that we're not running around like, you're significance driven and
No, and that's not. No, that's not what I'm saying.
I know that's not what
it was the tone, and it was the way that he was telling me things. It sounded very significant driven, and just the words that he was using, it sounded very significant driven.
Right. It could, and it probably
he wanted to sound significant.
Is it my
level
turn?
5 listening?
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, and that may, that maybe likely is the case. I think the other thing too is it's just a lack of skill. I can look back on so many experiences in my life. If I didn't have stage 1 Alzheimer's, I could remember half of it. I could, but even recently, there's situations where I was in a social circle and I realized I was just talking too much. Part of it was I was excited, and part of it I was nervous. It isn't that significance is not at this point in my life one of my top 2, and I think I'm being honest with myself. It has been that kind of a thing, but I was nervous and I was excited, and I think that happens, and so that then becomes a lack of skill, right? And so in awareness, right? So awareness is 90% curative if you understand the concept and you can be aware, self-aware. I think self-awareness is such a huge issue for us human beings, just understanding how we're coming across and realizing when we do, because we're all going to make mistakes, right? And just realizing, oh, I can see what I did there, and then trying again, right? So,
yeah,
I'll throw that out there for kindness.
All right, so a recap. Just do a recap.
Yeah, let's do a recap. I think I have a meeting too that I'm missing, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. Six human needs. Go.
Oh, 6 human needs: the need for certainty, the need for uncertainty, the need for significance, the need for love, and if we can't find love, we'll settle for connection. The need for growth, and the need for contribution. So we could spend a whole series talking about all these needs and how they permeate in our lives, but they are present in my life. They're present in your life, whether you know them or not. They're a huge, huge factor in what's driving the way that you behave, what's driving your decision making, what's driving how you make how you do the things that you do, and why you do the things that you do. It centers around those 6 human needs very, very much.
And understanding where the person is coming from that you're talking to, where they might be.
Correct.
On the 6 levels.
Correct. Yeah. In level 5, I mean, we could go down this conversation as well. In level 5 listening, if you know that you're talking to somebody that is uncertainty driven, variety driven, right? And you can actually understand that, not a judgment, right? It's not a label, but can understand, wow, this person is really about adventure and liveliness and all that kind of stuff. Then you can really gear the kinds of things that you're talking to about them, and even the deal that you're talking about by making sure that you're accentuating the
Yeah.
uncertainty aspects of that. So just to flip it, it doesn't have to, it's not always
Sure.
all about certainty, right? Some people are growth minded, and there's the contribution people,
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. That's why I said it's not just significance and concern. When people are really struggling in their life, really, really struggling, you can almost bet when you get the question and answer going that it's going to come down to significance and certainty. And those
Yeah.
are that combination is the devil. That's just, and maybe we've all been there at different times in our life. And if we mapped it, we go, oh, wow, those two things were driving me. That's bad news, right? So again, awareness, right? Awareness.
It's bad news because it's short. You might get outcomes out of being at the significant level or the certainty level, but I would say
Mhm.
it's very short term.
Yeah.
You
There's a lot of,
can't.
there's a
Mhm,
lot of there's a lot of bad behaviors that come out of those two needs, especially the
mhm.
combination of those two needs. So one of the words that comes to my mind that that I can recognize in my own past and in my experiences is manipulation, is being manipulative.
Yeah.
If you find yourself being manipulative, I bet you at that moment you're somewhat significance and certainty driven, or combination of the two.
Interesting.
One's one, one's two. And one's number one, one's number two. And
Mhm.
so that's just an example of the kind of behaviors that come out of that combination.
Yeah. Okay, I'll let you get to your meeting.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that's it for today. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us on Facebook, on the YouTube channel, on LinkedIn, and this will be available on podcasts in a couple of weeks. So thank you all.
Bye,
Have
guys.
a great Friday. Enjoy your day. And remember, you're only one deal away. Take care.